So I'm going to talk about some things here. Then I'm going to ask that question, if you have experience of participatory LME. Is there anything you'd like to share? And then I'm going to ask you just to sit and reflect with one or two colleagues about whether there's anything from today that you can use that you might find useful. So here, people they can do it. Count, estimate, measure, yes. Calculate, value and score, and they can compare things. And it's particularly when there are comparisons that you quantify the qualitative, as you can see here. And people can also, they can map, as we've seen, they can use mobiles. And we didn't deal with mobiles or ICTs, but ICTs are a big frontier. And I'm sorry that we didn't go into that, but it's something that I don't know a great deal about, but which is an exploding area, participatory use of mobiles, and crowdsourcing, which some of you will know about. This is from this book, which I already mentioned, Participatory Impact Assessment, which you can download. It's got a very interesting diagram here about iterative triangulation, because a lot of the rigor of participatory methods comes from cross-checking or triangulation. So you don't just have one way of learning about things, as you do with a questionnaire in an RCT. You have many ways of learning about things and comparing them with successive approximation. It's not precise measurement straight out, which a questionnaire does. It's successive approximation, and that's got an entirely different sort of rigor if you're trying to learn about something, because people correct one another. Methods for finding out the same thing, finding out about the same thing, come up with different conclusions, and so you interrogate them to find out which of them is more accurate, or whether they need modifying, or whether there are other ways in which you can approach the same information. So it's a different sort of rigor, and it's in that paper, Rigor for Complexity, and there's a sheet somewhere. If you would like to receive a copy, it can be sent to you. So here we've got matrix scoring as an attribution method. It's not really an attribution method. I think this is a misnomer. But it is comparing different service providers. And you can see what they did on the ground here, and you can see the numbers here. So this is different service providers. Do have a look at it. It's all in here. And this one is before and after. Before and after with scoring. And again, you can see here. I'll leave this up over lunch. You can see here how they've done it. So this is part of the participatory assessment of impact. Over here, this is something I very, very strongly recommend to you in any evaluation. And this is asking people to draw a trend line for how good or how bad things have been, with ups and downs. When they do this, you can then interrogate the trend line. And it very often will reveal things which are really significant, which people otherwise wouldn't have felt empowered to mention. So here you see it with this trend line. It goes up, and then there's a big dip here. What is it? Drought. We sold our assets. This is a drought, and then other conditions here. But you can do this in relation to a project. What was the experience with the project? How did it change over time? And if people in a group, people can show things. It's not even saying them. They can show things which they couldn't say individually, or wouldn't say individually. It's this issue of deference to the donor and all the rest of it. But if people are together drawing a trend line on the ground or on a piece of paper, they have a collective power, because it's not any one person who's taking responsibility. And so this empowers them to say things which they couldn't otherwise. This is the example from Rwanda, which is in the book. And this is participatory GIS. Have any of you come across participatory GIS? I don't think so. This is amazing. This is young people who've been trained to use GIS. And what they've done is they've mapped a slum in Nairobi. There's a whole mapping of Kibera. If you Google for map Kibera, you'll find all the stuff there. But this is not map Kibera. This is on the Community-Led Total Sanitation website. Or if you Google for Mathare, you'll probably find it. And what they've shown here is open drains, which are these, open drains which are polluting. They've shown public toilets, which are these, and the size of the circle is how many people use the public toilet. So this one is used a lot. Then they've got areas of open defecation, which tend to be in purple, which tend to be close to the public toilets, which is an interesting phenomenon which one can go into. And this empowers them because this is something they can use with the city council and have done. And the city council has even asked for more of this because there are people in the city council, particularly in the community development part of the city council, who would like pressure to be applied to the city council. And we need to remember this, even to remember it with DFID. There are people in DFID who, in my guess, would like us to push back on them more. I remember being called to the World Bank once for a workshop, and they called some of us from the NGO sector to come an afternoon before, because they wanted to brief us, and they wanted to say, for goodness sake, don't praise us too much. They said, we need you to be critical so that this will empower us within the World Bank to push further with the changes which we're trying for in a participatory mode. So one needs to remember that. They won't say it sometimes to you. They did in the World Bank case. In other cases, they won't say it, but they would actually like that pushback. And I suspect this is the case with participation, with payment by results. Because when I wrote that blog, the immediate reaction that I got was I was invited to one of their retreats to be an after-dinner speaker. And I thought that was very, very interesting and encouraging. And the number of informal feedback, that they don't particularly like it, but they're captured by it. And it's now spreading. It's spreading like a virus. And I personally think it's a disastrous extra step. It's like the Gadarene swine, running down a hill into the water. I mean, I think it's a disaster course personally. You may think that I'm exaggerating, but then I would challenge you to ask, are you frogs in a pot? Is the pot heating all the time? And are you just accepting it because you need the money? And are you like me, that you won't speak truth to power as long as you're trying to get money? And yet the people who are providing the money may want us to speak that truth. Anyway, this was very empowering, and it's another thing, they can do it. They can use participatory GIS.